Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm Annie, this is Stanley, and we're here to talk about books. So, regular viewers might notice that Stanley has a new scarf. Do you like it, Stanley? I learnt crochet in August and have never looked back. But G over on Book Roast did a video about how she did a granny square for every book that she read in 2024, picking the three colours from each cover, and then she made them into a blanket, and that inspired me to make a scarf for Stanley. So I have done a granny square for each of the books that I read in my first 2 months of reading books for BookTube, and so it's double-sided, so there's different ones on each side. I only picked 2 colours because I thought 3 was a bit much, and yeah, I'm really pleased with it, and it seems to suit Stanley quite well. It's pretty long because I read a lot of books, but yes, so that's that. Today is my September wrap-up video, and September has been quite a complicated reading month for me. Anybody who watched my TBR video will know all about that. More on that later, but first of all, let's make some tea. So here we are at the tea drawers. A little bit low on tea at the moment, but I'm hoping that Dave is going to take the heavy hint of me sending him a list of tea I like and get me some for my birthday. So we shall see. But in the meantime, D10 and D6. 3 and 4 is 7. So that is now going to be the top left of this one, which is the black lychee. Oh, always a good choice. Can't remember when I first tried lychee flavoured tea, but yeah, good option. Asked Me has already boiled the kettle, which is always appreciated. Black lychee. Yum. So now that we've got our tea in one of my favourite teapots with one of my favourite little mugs, let's get on to the September reading. So this was another month where my TBR went a bit rogue, so the books that I read don't necessarily match the books that I talked about in my TBR video, and that's largely because I was trying to combine 4 different reading challenges. So I'm doing hrcyed 2.0, hardest reading challenge you'll ever do. It was the autumn equinox semester at the University of Aurelium for the magical readathon, in which I am studying to be a star whisperer, so that got quite complicated. Tori over on Tori Talks was running a Lit Queens challenge to read books by women to fit different prompts. And I also decided to finish off my Reddit fantasy bingo board because I didn't have enough to do. So I'm going to be doing a whole other video about that, which is coming up soon, but that also had to be fitted in. So that's a lot of books. I also finished my 4th and 5th bingo squares on the hrcyed board. So I did the 24-hour readathon in July specifically. I did the TBR game square in August, and I did the complete a different readathon in September. But I've also finished the subgenre square, where I did lots of different types of sci-fi, and I've also finished the favourite prompt from hrcyed 1, which was 3 books that involve characters who share names with people I know. So that's pretty cool. 5 whole squares done out of the 25. But I had quite a lot of books to talk about, so I am going to challenge myself again. Lots of challenges on this channel. Can I talk about 12 different books in under half an hour? We shall see. You're going to know before I do whether I succeed on that front. I also have some notes next to me, so apologies if I'm like jinking back and forth off camera, because I had a lot of prompts and a lot of books and I don't necessarily remember them all, and so I thought I would get some notes to help me out. So let's dive in and see if we can do it. I'm already at nearly 4 minutes, so I've only got 25 minutes left. Okay, we can do it. Less than 2 minutes per book. Come on, Stanley, you believe in me, I believe in me. Let's go for it. So first of all, I started with The Frozen People by Ellie Griffiths. which was the astronomy qualified level. Each of the subjects have ordinary, qualified, and distinguished. You're meant to do them in the right order, but it was fine. I didn't have to do all of them for every subject, but we'll come on to that. And that was a genre I don't normally read. So this was a police procedural murder mystery book, which I actually got out of the library. It also fulfilled the new releases prompt for hrcyed for July and the Readathon Square. A lot of these will be for the Readathon Square. My dad recommended this one to me, and I am grateful to him for always watching my videos and always being interested in my reading and recommending books to me. But I really wanted to like this one. There was a lot of good characters. I liked the concept, which was a police unit who studied cold cases involving time travel. So they would travel back to different time periods to collect evidence. Just didn't hang together. Really inconsistent. Really bad internal consistency. Lots of things that were mentioned and then contradicted later on. It didn't really go anywhere particularly interesting. But I liked the world. I liked the characters. I'm kind of half tempted to carry on with the series, but this one didn't really work for me that much, unfortunately. So that was 2.5 stars. Next, I had 3 Bags Full by Leonie Swan, which I was really excited about. So this was supposed to be one of the readathon squares for hrcyed. Farm Animals, which was going to be a tricky square to fill, and also the Lore, L-O-R-E, ordinary level for Magical Readathon, which was a translated book. This was originally written in German. Also Lit Queen's black and or white cover. So it was doing a lot of heavy lifting. Unfortunately, again, didn't really work out for me. It's a murder mystery where the shepherd is killed and the sheep are the ones who are investigating. Love the concept. But it was really boring, and it was quite grim, and didn't get on with it, unfortunately. So I DNF'd this one, which wiped it out for all of the different prompts, which was a real shame because I was looking forward to this. But, you know, sometimes books don't work out. Next up, At the Mountains of Madness by H.P. Lovecraft. Another one that I was really looking forward to. Never read any Lovecraft. This was going to be for the hrcyed Readathon Square and also Antarctica for the Continent Square. And Magical Readathon Astronomy Distinguished Level, which was a book under 250 pages. Super short. And again, I didn't have a great start to the month. 3 books in a row that I didn't really like there very much. Because again, it was really boring. It's written as though it's a scientific report of an expedition to Antarctica, and the author talks at the beginning about how, terrible things happened, and he had to warn everybody about the terrible things that happened. And then he just goes on and on and on, incredible detail about the logistics of the expedition and all of the early stuff that they did and what they were looking for and ins and outs of all this stuff. And he keeps going, but I really need to warn you about the terrible things that happened. And then he doesn't actually want to talk about them, but it's meant to be a written report. And it doesn't really hang together as a written report because, you know, you could edit it down to just, this is what happened and why nobody should ever go to Antarctica. I mean, when the doom finally does occur, it's pretty doom-laden. I'm not going to lie. I was quite prepared. I'm aware of the Cthulhu mythos. I've played the board game. I've played the role-playing game. But yeah, it just didn't work out as much as I wanted it to, and I was disappointed. So 2 stars for At the Mountains of Madness. I did finish it. It would have been silly not to because it's very short. But yeah, another disappointment. So then I moved on to My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante, which I picked up from the local station free book exchange. And I'm very glad I did, because this one I enjoyed. So this was replacing the Lore ordinary level for Magical Readathon of a translated book, because this was originally written in Italian. hrcyed, another Readathon square, and also I'm hoping it's going to do the 4-book series on the series Staircase, because there are 4 books in this series, and I actually picked up all of the other 3 again from the Free Station Book Exchange. So I don't know whether somebody read the first one put it on the Free Station Book Exchange, maybe tried the second one a few months later, didn't like it and just dumped the rest, or finished the whole series and hadn't got round to passing them on. I'm very grateful to them because I'm hoping I'm going to enjoy the rest. This is set in, I can't remember, 1950s. Young woman growing up in Italy, in Naples in the 1950s. And the 4-book series, I think, is going to cover the whole of her life. And this one is her childhood and her teenage years. A lot of really interesting stuff about female friendships, pressures on school and issues with parents and growing up and adolescence and that kind of stuff. Yeah, largely enjoyed this. It took me a little while to get into it. There was something to do with her and her friend and their dolls, which really upset me towards the start because I have issues with toys and stuffed animals and dolls and yeah, a bit of trauma on that for me. But overall, I enjoyed it. Very keen to carry on with the series and hopefully complete all 4 books for the hrcyed challenge. 3.5 stars. Then I listened to the last in the Bill Hodges trilogy by Stephen King, End of Watch. And that, again, is the readathon square for hrcyed and also the disability rep square. So I'm using Hodges' illness and also Holly's autism and mental health issues for that. Which also helped me out for the ordinary level of astronomy, which was a protagonist with an invisible illness. And yeah, I'm glad I finished the series. I did enjoy the other 2, but I think I enjoyed each book less as it went along. It gets more supernatural as the series goes on, and I probably could have done without that. Various aspects of this very unpleasant. The story was kind of interesting, but I felt as if it kind of went off the rails a bit. It wasn't as good as the first one. And much like with the second one, the other characters, Holly was in it more, but Jerome is my favourite character, and he was barely in it. He did come into it towards the end, and there was interesting stuff to do with his sister, who we got to know in the first book as well. But yeah, I mean, I did enjoy it. And as I said, I'm glad I finished the series. Never thought this time last year that I would have read a whole Stephen King trilogy. I don't know if I'm going to carry on. I know there's a spin-off series with Holly taking over the investigation business. And I may get around to reading those at some point. They are still narrated by one of my favourite audiobook narrators, Will Patton. So that is a draw for me. So they may come back onto the listening schedule, but I'm not as invested in carrying on as I was when I read the first one earlier in the year. So again, 3.5 stars. Next is The Hounding by Zenobi Purvis, I think. And this is another new releases. So this was the new releases for August for hrcyed and also the readathon square, because it was fulfilling my distinguished level in psionics and divination for a book with a theme linked to a dream I had. And just before I was doing my TBR, I had a couple of dreams about dogs, and The Hounding is about a family of 4 sisters who the villagers in the village where they live start spreading out around rumours that they are transforming into dogs. So there's a lot about dogs in the book. Yeah, I don't tend to, I mean, it wasn't really horror. I think it's kind of billed as horror, but it wasn't really that horrifying. It was more kind of unsettling, not really sure what was going on. I think it was a very good portrayal of a very small community and what happens when a rumour or something like that gets out of hand and starts getting spread around and embellished. There was interesting stuff to do with the attitude towards young women, again, in a small community. And yeah, I enjoyed it. I read the ebook, which is not something that I often do. And it kept me interested all the way through. It wasn't maybe as compelling as I'd hoped, not as sensational as I might have hoped. It was a relatively quiet story and quite effective with it. I wasn't wholly sure I fully understood what was going on all the time or what the message was supposed to be. But it was an interesting read, and I'm glad that the various challenges prompted me to pick it up, because I wouldn't have done otherwise. And another 3.5 stars. You can see a trend forming. So next up was The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. And when I mentioned this in my TBR, someone actually commented on the video, which I'm always delighted when people leave comments on my videos. So please leave comments on my videos, saying that they had bounced off the audiobook because they were really put off by some of the voices that the audiobook narrator put on, especially for the male characters and the child characters. And I can kind of see where they're coming from with that. But I think perhaps because I was primed to potentially find that a problem, I didn't. The narrator did do a lot of different accents, which was in keeping with the book. It wasn't just kind of a choice on their part. They were characters from different parts of the UK and Ireland. And they did do the accents, and I thought they did a pretty good job. Sometimes female narrators doing male voices can be tricky. I find it is usually worse the other way around with male audiobook narrators doing female voices. One of the kids did have a slight lisp, but yeah, I don't think it really bothered me. I thought the characterization was really good. I enjoyed the audiobook narration. I haven't really said anything about the book. So it was the readathon square for hrcyed again, and purple cover for hrcyed. And I also used it for the magical readathon ordinary level of illusion, which was an autumnal setting, and it did start at Halloween and go through the whole of November and then into December, but it was mostly autumnal. And it's about a young woman who is a witch, and she gets asked to come and tutor 3 kids in a big house in the Norfolk countryside who are also witches, and they need some help because they're not doing very well controlling their powers. It was really fun. I enjoyed it. I loved the found family aspects. The group of people at the house were all really lovely. I thought the children were characterized really well. I don't know a huge amount about kids, but they seemed fairly credible as children to me. And the romance didn't really work so well for me. And when there was the traditional kind of huge kind of misunderstanding or reveal of secrets and stuff, and everything fell apart, it all got fixed a little bit too easily. It was a bit too easy. But for a cozy fantasy, cozy contemporary romance fantasy, lots of different genres in there. Could have used it for the genre blend prompt for Magical Readathon quite easily. It was sweet and it was enjoyable. It was very easy to listen to, and I have been struggling with my audiobooks. I'm having a bit of an issue with my brain at the moment in terms of holding on to stories when I'm listening to them. And this was very easy to listen to. So yeah, maybe not as complex and as involving as I might have wished, but it was a good, enjoyable, entertaining, heartwarming read. So it's another 3.5 stars. So I was watching a video by another YouTuber that I follow called, her channel's called Emmy, but her name is actually Emma. And she talked about a manga called Your Letter by Hyun A. Cho, which I'm probably not saying correctly. And I wanted a bit of a break from the things that I was reading. So I was getting a lot of, had a rough start to the month, as I've said, and a lot of 3.5 stars. But I thought I would give it a try. So I read it in one sitting during one of the Magical Readathon live sprints that G over on Book Roast ran during the month. And it was great. It was so good. It's set in a middle school, sort of early high school, I think maybe, in Japan, and a young girl, sort of early teenage years, I think, moves schools because she's being bullied. And she arrives and she's having trouble making friends. And she finds a letter taped under her desk, which is from someone who used to be at the school, who sends her on like a scavenger hunt to look for clues for more letters and meet different people around the school, which leads her to making friends. and she meets a boy who's connected to the letter writer, and they go on the adventure together. And it was lovely. It was so good. I think the ending was maybe a little bit rushed, and I could have done with a little bit more right at the end. But largely, I really, really enjoyed it. It was very affecting. It was very well drawn. I liked the art style. I loved the way that it all came together and how the girl found friends in the school and made connections and built a life. Yeah, it was really sweet, really lovely. And that was 4.5 stars, 4.5 stars. So that was really cool. It wasn't remotely on my plan to TBR, it just came up during the month and I just read it in one sitting, as I said. But I ended up allocating it to the translated square for hrcyed and also the published in 2018 for hrcyed in the last 10 years square. I assigned it to some extra credit. So if you complete all of your mandatory classes on Magical Readathon for the subject that you're studying towards, and you've got extra time, then you can just do other prompts. You meant to use ones that you studied in the autumn equinox. You meant to only carry on with subjects that you studied in the spring equinox as extra credit. And you're meant to start with the ordinary levels and then move up if you want to. I don't know whether they match the extra credit ones that I did in the autumn term, match the ones I did in the spring. But I did try and start with the ordinary level and then move up rather than just jumping around with any prompts I liked. But I used the qualified level of law, which I'd already completed the ordinary level, which was to read a book with a letter either in the story or on the cover. And this one had both, which was very good. It's called Your Letter. It was about a letter and it had a letter on the cover. So that was great. 4.5 stars. Really enjoyed it. Definitely recommend. I then moved on to some more manga. I read the whole collected edition of Orange by Ichigo Takano, which is also a teenage high school set story in Japan. Another contemporary one. In this one, which is also about letters, there's a girl who is, again, I don't know whether she is starting. No, it's another boy starts new at the school, and she gets a letter from her future self saying that he's going to die and giving her clues as to hopefully how to stop that from happening. And again, really great found family vibes. The time travel aspect of how they get the letters is absolute nonsense. When that was revealed how that happened, I was just like, I'm sorry, what now? That is such nonsense. But if you're happy to just go with that, which you have to be, really, it's really good. It did get a bit dragged out. It's over 7 volumes, and I read all 7 across the month. I only counted it as one book on the hrcyed challenge, so I was quite proud of myself for not splitting it up and doing 7 different squares, because I could have used that for the 4+ book series and just ticked off the whole lot in one go, but I felt, a bit too easy. Anyway, it was perhaps a little bit dragged out towards the end, but overall I really enjoyed it. Another 3.5 stars. So where are we at? 22.5 minutes. Come on, we can do it. Next up was Blackfish City, which was my last book. Blackfish City by Sam J. Miller. Last book on the Reddit Fantasy Bingo Challenge board, which was to read a book with biotech, which this does have. hrcyed, it was my final sci-fi subgenres, post-apocalyptic, and also the award season square because it was nominated or did win some awards. Magical Readathon, ordinary level for inscription, prime number of letters in the title. This was another extra credit, and this has 13 letters in the title. Set in the future, the world is flooded. There's a city, a floating city where all of this happens. There's a disease going around which is killing people off in the city. There's a lot of political machinations, different factions of people in the government and organised crime. A lot of disparate narratives that eventually do come together. I think it was very well written, very well put together. There's a lady who turns up unexpectedly on the city with a polar bear and an orca. And there's stuff to do with that, nanotechnology, bonding with animals, all sorts of stuff going on in this book. It did pick up a lot in the second half when the narrative started coming together more. But I did like the way that it all concluded, but some of it was very grim. It was very desperate, very gritty, very violent, very depressing, but good. So another 3.5 stars. Then we've got Kiki's Delivery Service by Aiko Kadono, which I've been meaning to read for a long time. Big fan of the movie. This was in fact for the adaptation square, something that had been turned into an animation. So Studio Ghibli movie helped with that for hrcyed, and also the light blue cover. Magical Readathon, Elemental Studies, Ordinary Level, another extra credit, Water on the cover. Also Lit Queen's non-Western setting. And yeah, it was fine. It's a middle grade book, but I have read some really amazing middle grade books in my time. And it was fine. It was sweet. It was cute. It was short, very slight. I liked aspects of it. It felt a little bit scattershot, didn't really have so much of a cohesive plot. Didn't really have as much depth as I would have hoped, but yeah, I enjoyed it. Didn't take very long to read. It was a good entertaining time. Another 3.5 stars. And that brings us to the last book, A Sleight of Shadows by Kat Howard, which concludes my duology square for the series Sturkia. My duology square for the series Staircase section of hrcyed, because I read the first one, An Unkindness of Magicians, earlier in the year, and also the September secret prompt, which was to craft while listening to a book. And I did quite a lot of Stanley Scarf whilst listening to the audiobook. Magical Readathon, Qualified Level of Shapeshifting, another extra credit for a title that starts with D, N or A. So this was the A. And yeah, I enjoyed the first one, but it felt as though the first one could easily have been a standalone. It told a complete story, so I wasn't quite sure where this one was going to go. And this felt really more like an extended coda to the first book rather than a story in and of itself. And I'm not sure we really needed it. It just, everything had been resolved at the end of the first one, but this one was about resistance to change, privilege, making people not want to be inconvenienced by changing their lifestyles so that other people lives were made better, which, you know, is a good message about how there are people in the world who are disadvantaged by the things that we do and how we consume things and what we buy, and how we live our lives. And there are often relatively small things we can do to improve the situation, and often we don't because it's inconvenient to us. So that was a good message. But I don't know, it just felt, I mean, slight. See what I did there? It's not a great pun, but still. Yeah, I'm not really sure what purpose it served, but I was fine to spend a few more hours in the world, and it was interesting to see what happened to the characters, and a lot of my favourite characters were prominent in the story. Very grim. There was a very, very grim thing that happened towards the end of Blackfish City, and also happened in A Sleight of Shadows that it was really unpleasant. Something really horrible happened to a character in each of those books, a very specific, very unpleasant thing, which I'm not going to explain further, but anyway, yeah, weird that it happened in 2 different books that I read in the same month. Yeah, 3 stars for A Sleight of Shadows. And that's it. I did also want to mention very quickly Tiny Bookshop, a computer game that I played this month, which isn't a book but is very much book related because you run a mobile bookshop in a town. I got absolutely obsessed with it to begin with. It kind of waxed and waned a little bit. The tasks that you got to do got a bit tricky. Some of them, it got a bit dragged out and a bit repetitive. But overall, I would recommend it. It was a fun time. And that was also 3.5 stars. So it's been very much a 3.5 star kind of a month, which isn't terrible. But your letter, 4.5 stars in the middle there, kind of balanced out the early issues with the books I didn't enjoy so much. And I think I've just about made it with adding in the tea making. I'm just going to come in under the wire. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in another video quite soon. Stanley's going to knock the teapot off if I'm not careful. But thank you for watching. Bye for now.